This is 5 on 20 News with Richard Aguirre.
And Phyllis James, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Tucson. It's Monday, July 17th. Let's talk local headlines.
Phyllis was supposed to start.
The organization No Kid Hungry is continuing their text service that alerts Arizona families to the nearest free meal. More than 300,000 families have utilized the service this summer. According to the program director, Derek Lambert, anyone in Arizona can text the words food or comida to the number 877-877 to get information about where to get a meal based on their location. Nonprofits, schools, and churches offer free meals throughout the year, but communication to the public is difficult, especially during the summer months when kids aren't in school to hear announcements.
The Department of Arizona Environmental Quality is reviewing protections on 2 Tucson area streams at the request of mining company Hudbay Minerals. The agency will review 22 streams in Arizona, including Davidson Canyon and Cienega Creek, both located near Tucson. Some heavy metal contamination has already been found in both streams, according to officials at ADEQ. County Administrator Chuck Huckleberry is concerned that the company's request indicates that they are attempting to remove protections from the waterways. Hudbay is the company behind the controversial Rosemont mine, the $1.9 billion project that has been opposed by some residents who fear that the mine will contaminate the area. Last week, the Pima Board of Supervisors voted 3-2 to oppose removing protections for the 2 streams, as Huckleberry accused Hudbay of a thinly disguised effort to weaken protections. Hudbay has not commented on the vote or the contamination samples found in the streams.
A Tempe church with Tucson roots was disciplined by Arizona state officials for hazing and other misconduct. Hope Church, which sprung from ex-members of the Tucson-based Faith Christian Church, was accused of sexually humiliating students at ASU, where the church has a campus. Allegedly, students were asked about their sexual history in private, then were urged to publicly admit the shared information. The church will spend the next 4 years under sanctions from the schools after the disciplinary ruling by the school's deans of students. However, the church insists that no wrongdoing occurred. The disciplinary action comes after 5 other complaints against Hope student clubs, after students claimed that the clubs were posing as secular groups but were collecting information on the church's behalf. Hope Church will now lose out on the hundreds of thousands of dollars in free rent they've been leasing from the campus and access to tuition discounts for church leaders and their families.
That's too bad.
Yeah, that's a sad story.
That's not a church I want to be a part of.
No.
Migrants caught crossing the border for the first time are now being charged, according to the Border Patrol's Tucson sector. The agency has already charged and prosecuted 565 first-time offenders for crossing over the Mexico-Arizona border. Before last June, first-time offenders were deported instead of criminally prosecuted, but a Trump administration policy changed this. The United States Attorney's Office said that immigrants can be charged with misdemeanors under Operation Streamline, which was established in 2005. Under Operation Streamline, migrants are charged and enter pleas in large group within a few minutes. Critics of the policy say that it clogs up the courts and only leads to migrants taking more dangerous routes to avoid being caught. However, the Border Patrol says it reduces recidivism and sends a message to future border crossers.
Arizona's Senator John McCain is recovering from surgery to remove a blood clot from his eye, according to statements from his office. McCain underwent the surgery on Friday at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, releasing a statement saying that he received excellent care and is in good spirits. Because he'll be recovering this week, McCain won't be able to vote on the Republican health care bill to replace the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans chose to postpone a vote on the bill. This comes at a time of deep discord among the Republican Party, who are splitting into factions based on reactions to the legislation. Senator Rand Paul said that the delay might be costly to the passage of the bill and said that he doesn't think Senate Leader Mitch McConnell has the votes to pass the bill. And now in national and international news.
I hope John McCain gets better soon.
Yes, I do as well.
State election officials in South Carolina said that there were almost 150,000 attempts to hack the state's voter registration system. However, the South Carolina State Election Commission report found no evidence of that the hacking attempts were successful. The report said that most of the attempts were likely carried out by bots, but could not say what country the bots originated from. In completely unrelated news, 85% of the bots were named either Boris or Ivan.
Between 400 and 500 people showed up in front of the NRA headquarters in Washington, D.C. to protest the organization's influence over the nation's gun policy. A group has been appearing at the same spot for the past 55 months, and the crowd usually numbers about 30. But the large turnover had to do with efforts by Women's March organizer Linda Censor and others, who have criticized the NRA for a recent aggressive commercial targeting liberal activists. The commercial urges gun rights supporters to address their opponents with a tight fist. Censor says she organized a group to fight back against what she sees an outsized influence by the NRA. She also called out the group's silence after the shooting of Philando Castile, who was a licensed gun owner. About 20 counter-protesters showed up outside the NRA building, holding signs that supported gun rights. No incidents were reported from the incident, but that didn't stop NRA spokeswoman Dana Litch from calling the protesters anarchist angels, which was one of the more confusing insults this year.
Documents obtained by The Intercept show that the SEC has added even more Goldman Sachs alumni than has been publicly released. One example was Sean Meeman, who was deputy chief of the staff of SEC Commissioner Jay Clayton, who was also a Goldman Sachs attorney. Meeman's disclosure shows that he previously worked for Goldman, along with a buffet of Wall Street's best like Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Chase, AIG, and Deutsche Bank. Then there was Stephen Pekin, director of the SEC's Enforcement Division, who was also a former attorney to Goldman Sachs and other Wall Street banks. These guys join other Goldman alumni in the Trump administration, such as economic advisor Gary Cohn, Treasurer Security Stephen Munich, Undersecretary of State Eric Uland, and of course White House advisor Steve Bannon.
African Americans may suffer higher rates of Alzheimer's because of stress and poverty, according to a recent report released at the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. A group of scholars from various universities and healthcare companies such as Kaiser Permanente collaborated on the report, which analyzed how life experiences relate to Alzheimer's. They found evidence that poverty, disadvantage, and stressful life events are strongly linked with cognitive problems in middle age and dementia later in life. The research also suggested that genetics factors were not a major contributor in the cases they studied. African Americans are about twice as likely to suffer from dementia later in life and also more subject to high pressure and diabetes. Among the findings of the study, Black people were 40% more likely to develop dementia if they'd been born in a state with high infant mortality. Researchers studied over 1,300 people in their 50s and 60s with African Americans reported 60% more stressful events than their white counterparts. Researchers found that it wasn't just being exposed to stressful events, but how it impacted the brain differently between Black and white people. For white people, a stressful event added about 1.5 years to normal brain aging, but for Black people, the event caused the brain to age an extra 4 years. Next, the team is looking to figure out why these stressful events change the brain.
Donald Trump's approval rating sank to a 70-year low, according to a Washington Post ABC News poll over the weekend. The poll found that Trump has a 36% approval data, down 6 points from his first 100 days rating. It also found that 48% believe that America's leadership is now weaker since Trump took office. And it wasn't just the president who took a beating. Just 24% support the Republican effort to replace the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, which 50% said they supported. Trump took the news in typical humble fashion, lashing out on Twitter. that the poll was, quote, just about the most inaccurate around election time. He also said that 40% isn't bad at this time of a presidency. This isn't true. By the way, as Obama's approval rating at the same time was 56%, and George W. Bush's was 52%.
This was 5 on 20 News with Phyllis James.
And Richard Aguirre. One quick announcement that I wanted to make. Tonight, there's a comedy show at Borderlands at 119 East Toole. You've seen him on Comedy Central, and you've seen him on Beat the Geeks. Paul Goebel is going to be headlining. There it is, right there. Nice. And Matt Zemak and Rory Montserrat, a couple of local comedians, will be hosting that. That's 8 o'clock tonight, 119 East Toole, Borderlands Brewery. The show's at 8 o'clock, and it's a free show. Paul Goebel's headlining. It's a big deal. Come out and check it out. It's tonight.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
And stay tuned for Veteran Heartbeat with Phyllis James.
Thank you.